Hey guys, what's up? And I figured I would do a quick project update on a blaster that I just started while it's in its earlier phases, so that way as we progress with the project we can really see how far it's come since the very initial planning stage. Basically, for those of you who don't know, a Bullpup style gun is one where the magazine is behind the trigger and in real steel that's done so you can get a full-length barrel into a shorter firearm, but in this case we're just doing it because it looks cool. Overall, I'm really not a fan of how bulky the Rapidstrike was, so I've actually never done a Rapidstrike up until this one. This will be my first, but I figured I want to completely remove some of the sections and more or less make it less recognizable as a Rapidstrike and more as a custom blaster. So the two main areas that really bothered me were that cheek rest area, which has just been completely removed, and this front area, which has been pretty bulky. However, I'm going to try to blend it in a bit more with the aesthetic of the Bullpup. But I'll go over that in a second. Also, I'm going to film this probably in terms of project updates rather than a how-to. Normally when I do mod guides, if I have a pretty good idea of what I'm doing, I like to sort of show the process and every step involved with that. However, with this one, I sort of just went nosedive straight into it, not really sure what I want to do, just to have some fun with it. So I figured it would be better to occasionally show you guys how it's going as I progress and then work on it independently, because I don't really want to have to worry about filming each segment because I'm not really sure how I want it to fit together. Basically though, what I've started with is the Rapidstrike itself as the main firing blaster. I knew I wanted to make a Bullpup, so I figured I would start off with a Firefly stock, being that it was about the size I needed, and I have a few Fireflies lying around, so if one of them got ruined just for the sake of testing, it's not really a big deal. You could usually pick them up for like $5 at thrift stores. Another benefit of the Firefly is that it has one of the most comfortable stocks in my opinion. So if we were able to incorporate that into a final product, then that would be absolutely fantastic. Also, it's not really glued together yet. There's just little tacks of hot glue holding it together so I can get a rough idea of sort of the profile that I'm going for, and then I can make more informed decisions based on that. Basically, I did some initial rough cuts, and then I figured I would, once I figured out how I wanted everything to sit sort of on the blaster, I would take it back apart, and then one at a time I'd sort of file it down and really get the profiling correct, so when I glued it together it would be obviously more straight, and the pieces would align a little bit better. So like I said a few times, but I'm really just sort of winging this one and seeing where it goes, so don't be surprised if pieces change. Anyway, going back to just sort of my thought process, I went with a Raven handle up here for a variety of reasons. One, I really like the thumb hole design, and I thought that it'd be kind of neat on a Bullpup blaster. Plus, I like how it sort of fits into the shell here, as you can see. Probably could have put it back a little further, however, I wanted to keep that, and also it's actually at a pretty comfortable position in the blaster. So another benefit of sort of tacking it together before you actually go forward with the project is that you can really get a feel for the comfort of the blaster, especially with something like this. I feel that the mag release and the trigger and rev trigger are in a really comfortable position, and that Firefly stock really helps to make it a comfortable blaster. But it's also long enough now that you could either use it comfortably two-handed or one-handed. One of the problems I had with the Raven is that it has a pretty comfortable front hand rest. However, it's way too short to actually use it effectively, so this actually lengthens the blaster enough to where you can comfortably use this with two hands. So now that I've sort of explained my reasoning, I'm going to go over the few next steps that I'm going to take to try and work the blaster into a more finished state. Basically with this back section where I cut off all of that bad raised cheek area, I'm just going to drag these lines out. I'm going to put a little piece of plastic and then just epoxy sculpt and sand it down. So I'm just going to follow the profile of the blaster down into the Raven stock, and I think that'll help it meet up here a bit better. And then for the down here area, to sort of blend that together, I plan on taking a piece of polycarb and basically making a fake side that will probably extend to maybe even up here. And then we'll have sort of a more flat line, just flat section that'll sort of drag this into the mid section up here and sort of blend it into here, so it'll probably be about that deep, so matching around with the bottom of the stock to about here, and then it'll sort of smoothen this area out. I'll probably remove this section and then trim that back, and then we'll have plenty of room up here to maybe put some thumb screws on the bottom and make a compartment for a lipo for this setup. So I think I have a pretty solid plan for the back to sort of blend that together, but now for the front, it's a bit of a problem. So I liked how the Raven fit in here, so I ended up just trimming it right along here, but I also did that to sort of save the top rail from being completely destroyed. So my intent with the top rail is to match it along with the Rapidstrike one, and then sort of drag the profile forwards, and that'll give it a pretty bulky front end, but it'll also sort of match up with the bottom hail, and it'll base. So my intent with the top rail is basically to add it on something like this, drag out that front profile, and it'll sort of basically be a sort of chunky Raven in the front. And then we'll keep most of the Rapidstrike, but I'll probably end up smoothing it out, like we might get rid of this whole tooth area, sort of angle it in maybe a bit more aggressively from there to there, and then just fill this whole area in and make it completely flat. And sort of same with this, like fill in a lot of this detail. I'm going to remove the ribbing on here so that that fits more flush. And then that way we have a large flat area, and I could potentially mount something like Picatinny rails on both sides of the blaster, as I'll be removing at least this one, I know for sure, to put a 180 cover on. And then this one I might also just remove and make it either flat, or I might have one of those windows where you can see into the flywheels, but it sort of depends on the flywheel setup that I choose for this blaster. And then for this last area where there's like a blaring gap, I might just either fill that in with some plastic behind it and then epoxy sculpt to sort of make something just like basically an extended Raven, and it'll just carry down into this part of the shell, and then that'll sort of even it out in my opinion, because I have to look at it obviously because I haven't done it yet, but it'll be pretty flat all along the blaster, so we'll have fairly defined flat areas on the blaster, and we won't have anything crazy, so it'll sort of aesthetically fit together with sort of that like very flat, not bulky necessarily, but sort of a larger profile than you would usually have with a blaster like this, so it might end up being kind of cool. Depending on how much flat area, I might 3D print some little detail parts just to sort of mix it up a bit, but we'll have to see how it sort of is pulling together when I get closer to that time. Anyway guys, that's sort of just a general overview of where I'm at with this project. It's obviously very early in the sort of cycle. However, I thought it'd be kind of cool to take a look at it now, and then maybe, a little while down the road when it's a finished product, we can do a comparison now that you guys have seen it. Plus, I sort of needed an integration project to take a break from the stripes I've been working on. I have this one, which is pretty much done. It's painted and all ready to go. I'm just going to wait until this weekend when it's a bit warmer and I can throw some clear coat on this. I actually just got a spray gun, so I'm going to be mixing my own 2K for that guy. I have another stripe which is has drying paint rather right now. And then I have this guy, which I also just started, which is a second of the slug bow with the corrections for the stock, and this one is also printed in PETG. This is actually my first time printing in it, so I did some test prints, but overall I think I have it dialed in really well, and the quality is pretty darn good. And PETG is basically comparable in strength to ABS rather than PLA, but the amount of deformation that this takes before it actually breaks is like crazy high compared to something like PLA and ABS. So it's a very durable material, and it'll make a great shell material. So I have a full 2 spools of this. I probably only need one, but I did some test prints too. So we got a second one just in case we could finish this guy up. Then I also got some new finishing products to try out on this, so hopefully we'll get a really smooth blaster. Then depending on how it is, I might either paint it to look like exactly like the original crossbow. I have a purple that I've matched to look pretty good, or we could just take it in a different direction, but we'll see as we go. So look forward to those videos in the near future. Anyway, I think that about wraps up this video. As always, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in another video.